My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, I hope your week is going great. Welcome to another midweek tease, and this time it's all about drinks. So I had my first proper sip of alcohol when I was in high school. There was a family party and we stole a can of Reds. We tasted it and then we all just stood there waiting to feel drunk. Nothing happened. We were so many sharing this one can, so the most each got was like one sip. But the reason I say that was my first proper sip of alcohol is when I was younger. For some very odd reason, my dad once gave me a sip of beer. And I know a lot of parents from that generation did that. It tasted terrible, and I remember swearing I would never take alcohol again because my dad told me all alcohol was bitter. And I was a sweet tooth, so I was just like, I don't really understand why adults are drinking this thing. It tastes terrible. So if we fast forward to campus, I remember my campus life being full of parties, which meant tons of alcohol. There were moments I threw up, and I always felt better after throwing up, like I was ready to drink some more. But even then, at the back of my mind, I always remembered my dad being an alcoholic. Pretty much all my life, my dad had battled alcoholism. And I think that's where I started noticing how people change when they drink. Some people become loving. I think that's me. I'm the one who'll pull you to the side and give you like long speeches about how I love you and all of these things. But there's people who become loving. There's people who become more aggressive. From monitoring him and watching him as a kid, I would always get super anxious whenever he was drinking because I loved who he was sober and I hated who he was drunk. The change was also quite a mindfuck because he just became this monster, this really aggressive person, you know? But going back to knowing that my dad was an alcoholic in campus, I had read very lightly about the addictive gene. And so at the back of my mind, I didn't want to mistakenly spark an addiction. And so I always had that lingering fear at the back of my mind. And it was a fear of becoming an addict. What I wasn't cognizant about is also understanding the alcohol. I didn't know it's the actual poison. You know, when they refer to alcohol poisoning, I didn't know it's the alcohol that is the poison. A couple of years ago, I lost an acquaintance. He was out with friends drinking. They went to one person's home. He blacked out, which they thought was normal. In fact, throwing it back to uni, we'd laugh at people who at parties blakied, aka blacked out. So he blacked out and he didn't wake up. He died. Alcohol poisoning was the cause, and at the time I thought alcohol poisoning occurs only when you drink illicit. I remember being so disturbed by his death that it was about 2 a.m. I was in bed because I was trying to crack just where would he interact with illicit or doctored alcohol? Like, how did this happen? And I was on my phone, 2 a.m. And I remember one of the things that came up, like I've even just Googled it again so that I can give it to you blow for blow. And it says, alcohol poisoning is a serious and sometimes deadly result of drinking large amounts of alcohol in a short period of time. And I was just like, oh, wait. So you mean like all alcohol? And I just kind of like began deep diving on my phone in bed at 2 a.m. and realizing that the alcohol itself is the poison. And drinking too much of it too quickly can end up in alcohol poisoning, which can lead to comas and even death. Even digging further, like just trying to understand, because you know when you're like Googling something, you go down the rabbit hole, and just trying to understand that alcohol is very different from food. It takes our body a long time to digest and absorb, right, food. But alcohol, the body absorbs this very, very quickly. And it takes a lot more time for the body to get rid of the alcohol. So the more you drink, especially in a short period of time, the greater your risk of alcohol poisoning. And I remember this was such a wake-up call for me. I started really acknowledging how information around alcohol was never really loud. And it still isn't, if you think about it. The most we were told when we started drinking is drink water, make sure you eat, and then don't drink and drive. But a deeper understanding that the alcohol is the poison is never shared. Maybe people didn't know, like me, or maybe it's just bad for business. When it comes to advertising alcohol in Kenya, so much has been changing. When I was on radio, they could only advertise after 6 or 7 p.m., I think. That's when you would hear a lot of advertisements on alcohol, which is why it was mainly the drive shows that were constantly selling alcohol and the nighttime shows. And this was for both radio and television, if I'm not wrong. So it meant alcohol brands needed to find other ways to market their products, right? And so there was this huge shift to push the product on social media. I can't remember what the research said, but I think one of the biggest distributors of alcohol products in Kenya, for the first time a few years ago, their marketing budget, a huge chunk of it went to digital platforms. And so this means, amongst many other things, influencers, which means when you and I scroll on social media, we're bound to interact with glamorized content around alcohol or content where alcohol is so normalized in that setting, it subliminally tells you that it's a needed addition to that setting. Be it we're celebrating something, we're partying, we're eating, and there's no problem with that. I mean, this is capitalism. I have in the past marketed alcoholic brands, and over the last year to 2 years, I've been having conversations with friends in the industry and close friends to me and just wondering, would I do it again? I'm not sure, As much as we've normalized alcohol being part of all our social gatherings, that doesn't have to be the case. You consciously need to make that choice of whether it's going to be at a social gathering or not. Meaning you have the power to ask yourself, do I feel like drinking today? Do I want to? You have the autonomy of making that choice no matter what we've been socialized to believe. You also have to arm yourself with knowledge, right? Businesses will not do this for you. It's great business for you to drink, probably even better if you are a functioning alcoholic. I have really scaled down how much I drink. And what I'm realizing is because we've made it so normal that alcohol has to be part of social gatherings, it is actually inconveniencing in some settings to not drink. I remember going to a gig and all I wanted was juice or a ginger lemon honey mix. We call that a dawa. And I know in some places they add a bit of alcohol in it, but I wanted like just the regular dawas, right? Ginger, honey, lemon, boil it up and give it to me. Now this establishment had no juice and they wanted to keep the sodas for those drinking alcohol, which is okay because I actually don't drink sodas much anymore. But anyway, they wanted to keep the sodas for those drinking alcohol to use as chasers. So this waitress who is serving me, God bless her, she had to go to another establishment to buy me a dawa, and it's a hot drink. Balance it all the way back. In fact, because it was a different establishment, she would go buy it for me, bring it to me, and I would send her the money. And I was sitting at a table where everyone was drinking. I remember this guy saying, just have a shot at this point because you're just going to sit thirsty here waiting. And I don't know why. I really wasn't in the mood to drink that day, so I kept saying no. But I also was thinking, man, I don't want to drink. And how is it more inconveniencing to not want to drink alcohol, I haven't completely quit alcohol. I have drastically reduced my intake. I'm on the way there though. I am heading to fully having it out of my diet. So when I go out with friends, what I do is I'll check in with myself, and I'll kind of ask, what do you feel like drinking or eating? Because I'm trying to eat consistently, and there are days the answer is water. There are days it's a mojito. There are days it's a virgin mojito, and that's becoming increasing because virgin cocktails are actually really great. And there's an artistry to making cocktails even when they don't have alcohol. I even recently just had some friends over and I didn't buy any alcohol. I brewed hibiscus juice, I made fun juice cocktails, and I told them if they want alcohol, they can carry their favorite drink. And I'm kind of just trying to coach myself to unlearn that alcohol has to be part of every social gathering and that I have to drink every time I'm at a social gathering, And I just feel like another thing that would be so helpful is if somebody isn't drinking, don't ask them why. It's normal. Oh my goodness. let people enjoy whatever the heck they want to enjoy, you know? That can be normal as well. And I'm realizing I'm on the journey to quitting altogether out of self-love, because how I treat my body is linked to whether I love myself or not. And I'm in an era where I'm really rooted in love, and I'm trying to move from love in my external relationships, but also in my relationship with self, you know, mind, body, spirit. And this has made it easier for me to do the things that before I hated doing, even things like chores, you know. I'll find myself really like cleaning my house because I'm like, babe, I love you. You deserve to have a super clean kitchen always, you know? I love you. Please remember to take your magnesium. It's good for us. I love you. Please remember to do ABCD. I love you. We're going to give this body what is healthy for it. And I found it's helped me make baby steps with exercise and even my eating habits, although I really need to eat a lot healthier. But it really helps me reduce how much alcohol I take in. And so, am I the only one who's on this journey? What's your journey with alcohol? Have you reduced your intake? Are you also like me on the journey to fully quitting? How can we support each other? Rather, how can we cheer for each other? I would really like to know. Let me know in the comments of whatever platform you're listening to this on, or you can hit us up on Instagram. We're at Legally Clueless Africa. I'll catch you on Monday for our full episode. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.